My ex-girlfriend stole my security credentials to impress her new guy, so I made sure she ended up destroying her own life. Sup, Reddit. I work at one of the busiest ports in the country, and my ex-girlfriend decided to speedrun a criminal record because she wanted to impress some dude with a YouTube channel. I'm Jared, 26 male. Here's what went down. They don't pull you out of a job mid-shift unless something's already on fire. And nothing good ever starts with a supervisor walking towards you with that look on his face. I was elbow deep in a reach stacker's hydraulic system at Pier J, covered in grease, sweating through my third shirt of the day, when I saw Paul cutting across the yard. The kind of walk that says somebody's day is about to get very complicated. Behind him was a woman I didn't recognize. Business casual, lanyard that screamed compliance, scanning the yard like she was cataloging every face, every movement, every potential problem. I know what that energy looks like from 100 yards. It was 2:40 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember because I just checked my phone to see how much longer until break, and instead I saw 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Turned out to be Terminal Security's office line trying to reach me before sending Paul. Never a good sign. My classification review was supposed to close out next month. Whatever this was, the timing couldn't be worse. Paul stopped about 10 feet away. The woman stayed back, watching me like I owed her money, and she was calculating interest. The yard noise around us, forklifts beeping, cranes humming, radio chatter from every direction, suddenly felt very loud. King, leave the tools. You need to come with us. I wiped my hands on a rag that was already past the point of usefulness. What's going on? Security office. Now. I'd started as a yard jockey, worked my way up to equipment tech. I maintained the RTGs, the reach stackers, the chassis handlers, everything that keeps more cargo moving than most people realize. I'd never been called to security for anything serious. Never had a complaint. Never missed a safety check. Whatever this was, it wasn't routine. 2 weeks earlier, I diagnosed a fault in an RTG that 3 other techs had missed. Traced it to a corroded relay buried behind a panel nobody checks, because the manual says it's maintenance-free. Paul put me in for a commendation. That's the kind of guy who was now being walked to security like a suspect. The walk across the yard felt longer than it should have. Longshoremen I'd known for years watched us pass. Guzman from the crane crew. Eddie, who ran graveyard. Ramon from security, who I played poker with twice a month. Nobody said anything, but I could feel the questions. The woman walked behind me like she was escorting a prisoner. My boots echoed on the concrete. Somewhere behind us, a container ship horn blasted twice. The security building was cold. They led me to a conference room with no windows. There was a folder on the table with my employee photo clipped to the front, my TWIC number written below it in black marker. Paul sat down across from me. The woman took the seat at the head of the table and finally introduced herself. Mr. King, I'm Deepa Patel, investigator with Terminal Security. Her voice was calm. She reminded me of that hitman in Collateral, the one who treats everything like it's just business. Detached, professional, dangerous in a way that doesn't require raising your voice. We have some questions about your TWIC card. My TWIC, I've got it right here. I reached for my wallet. We know you have one. That's not the issue. She opened the folder. The issue is that a credential registered to your name was used to sponsor visitor access at a restricted pier yesterday at 11:43 a.m. You weren't scheduled there. You weren't on any work order, and you never filed a visitor authorization. Something twisted in my gut. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any visitor access. She slid a photograph across the table. Grainy, pulled from security footage, but clear enough. A woman walking through a gate checkpoint with a temp badge clipped to her jacket. Dark hair. Expensive sunglasses. A face I'd been trying not to think about for 3 weeks. Kelsey, my ex-girlfriend. The woman I'd blocked on everything after she humiliated me at a company event. The woman who apparently decided the silent treatment wasn't enough and escalated to actual crimes. Do you recognize this woman? I didn't answer immediately. My brain was trying to process something so stupid, so reckless, so completely insane that it couldn't quite accept it was real. Mr. King? Yeah, that's my ex-girlfriend. Ms. Patel's pen stopped moving. Your ex-girlfriend used your credentials to gain visitor access to a secure port facility. I didn't give her permission to do that. I didn't ask if you gave her permission. I'm telling you what happened. She pulled out another photograph. Kelsey wasn't alone. There was a guy with her. Tall, slick haircut, expensive suit. He was holding a phone up like he was recording something. Who's the man? No idea. Never seen him before. She used your credential number to get a visitor badge, brought an unauthorized individual inside with her, and they spent close to an hour in a restricted zone. Do you understand how serious that is? I understood. Unauthorized access violations aren't parking tickets. We're talking criminal charges, facility prosecution, the kind of stuff that ends careers and starts court cases. I didn't know she had my card. Then how did she get it? And that's when I realized the answer would either clear me or bury me. 3 weeks earlier, everything was still normal. Kelsey and I had been together about a year and a half, met at a friend's birthday thing in San Pedro. She worked for some boutique PR firm in LA. Pretty, ambitious, and had this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. At least, that's how it started. My classification review was 2 months out. I was putting in extra hours, staying clean, doing everything right. And she was on my case about not being present enough in her life. I'm not going to pretend I didn't see the red flags. I saw them. I just convinced myself they were yellow, maybe orange at worst. I told myself everyone has quirks. Everyone has baggage. I was being mature by overlooking the small stuff. She'd get weird about my job sometimes. Not openly critical, just these little comments that stuck in your brain like splinters. Like when I'd come home smelling like diesel and she'd wrinkle her nose and ask if I could shower before sitting on the couch. Or when she'd introduce me to her work friends and say I was in logistics instead of saying I fixed heavy equipment at the port. One time she joked that I should tell people I was in supply chain management because it sounded more serious. I laughed it off, thought she was just being helpful. The thing that blew everything up happened at an awards dinner her company organized. Some hotel ballroom in Marina del Rey. Chandeliers the size of my truck. Round tables with too many forks. People in expensive clothes congratulating each other for campaigns nobody outside that room had ever heard of. Kelsey insisted I come. Said it would be good for me to see her world. Said her boss would be there, and it was important for her career. I should have said no. I was tired. I'd worked a double the day before fixing a reach stacker that kept stalling mid-lift. My hands still had grease under the nails that I couldn't scrub out. But she'd been on my case about not being present in her life, so I went. The ballroom was packed. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. I felt like an extra in a movie about people who matter, wandering around the background while the real characters had conversations. Her friends were there. The whole crew. Megan, who worked at the same PR firm and never remembered my name. Julia, who sold something to do with wellness and always talked like she was pitching a product. And this guy named Trent, who apparently owned a startup that did something with AI and real estate. He had that particular kind of confidence rich people have. Not earned, just assumed. They were standing near the drink station, and when I walked over with Kelsey, the conversation shifted. Megan gave me a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. Julia glanced at my shoes and then looked away. Trent didn't bother pretending to notice me at all. He was telling some story about a property deal in Venice Beach, and everyone was nodding like he'd just explained gravity. The guy had soft hands and a watch that probably cost more than everything I owned, and I caught him checking his reflection in his glass. Twice. There he is, Kelsey said, looping her arm through mine. My hard-working man. What do you do again? Trent asked. He just wanted me to say it out loud so everyone could hear. Equipment tech at the port. Long Beach. The port? Julia tilted her head like I'd said something confusing. Like, shipping containers? Yeah. I maintain the cranes and yard equipment. Oh, she gave me a fake smile. That's hands-on. The conversation moved on like I hadn't spoken. Real estate prices. Influencer drama. A restaurant in Silver Lake with a 3-month waitlist. I stood there holding my drink, contributing nothing, feeling like a prop in someone else's life. The chandeliers suddenly felt less impressive and more suffocating. Then Megan made a comment about engagement rings. How her boyfriend was apparently shopping somewhere in Beverly Hills. How she expected something substantial because anything less would be embarrassing. What about you, Kels? Julia grinned, leaning in. Any hints from your guy? Kelsey laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Please, you think a dock guy can afford what I'm looking for? The whole circle laughed. Trent snorted into his drink. Megan covered her mouth like it was too good. And Kelsey, my girlfriend, the woman I'd spent 18 months building something with, just smiled. Didn't correct herself. Didn't say she was joking. Just let it sit there like it was the most obvious truth in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's sweet, she continued, warming to the audience. But let's be realistic. I'm not walking around with some half-carat thing from Costco. A girl has standards. More laughter. Then she patted my arm like I was a golden retriever who'd done a trick. Didn't even look at me while she did it. I set my glass down on the nearest table. Didn't say anything. Didn't make a scene. Just turned around and walked toward the exit. Heard Kelsey call my name once, but she didn't follow. I sat in my truck in the hotel parking garage for 20 minutes before I drove home. Didn't call her. Didn't text. Just drove. When I got home, I started packing up the stuff she'd left at my place. Clothes, a makeup bag, some books she never read. Took about an hour because she'd somehow spread her things through every room in my apartment. About 2 hours after I left the hotel, Kelsey showed up at my apartment. She still had the door code, let herself in while I was in the shower, and started doing what she always did when she sensed a fight coming, acting like nothing happened, tidying up, moving things around, trying to normalize the situation. I came out, told her we were done, and told her to get her stuff and leave. She cried, argued, told me I was overreacting. I wasn't interested. I stood in the kitchen doorway and waited while she packed a bag. She made multiple trips between rooms, grabbing things. At one point, she was in the kitchen for a minute, said she was looking for her phone charger. I was exhausted, running on no sleep and a lot of anger, and I wasn't exactly supervising her like a security checkpoint. I heard a drawer open, the junk drawer, the one where I kept old cards, spare keys, random paperwork. She said she was grabbing a hair tie. I was standing in the bedroom doorway with my arms crossed, just wanting her gone. I didn't walk over to check. She left around 1 a.m. I changed the door code first thing the next morning. What I didn't realize until weeks later was that during that time in the kitchen, she'd found my old TWIC card in that junk drawer. The card I'd replaced a few months earlier when I got my renewal. I'd kept it because I'm the kind of person who doesn't throw stuff away until I'm absolutely sure I don't need it. My dad was the same way. Receipts from 2003, old warranties, replaced cards, just in case. She must have snapped a photo of it or written down the credential number. Either way, she had what she needed, and I had no idea. Every day that credential number was compromised, and I didn't know, was a day closer to my classification review getting torched. After that night, she came back the next morning and pounded on the door for 10 minutes. New code stopped her, left a voicemail through a friend's phone, calling me childish and dramatic and unable to take a joke. I didn't respond. 2 days later, she texted from another number, asking me to Venmo her $85 for her half of the anniversary dinner from 3 months ago. A dinner I'd paid for entirely, at a restaurant she picked. I didn't respond to that either. What I didn't account for was that Kelsey wasn't the type to accept being ignored. She was the type to escalate, and she was already holding the key to do it. 43 minutes inside a restricted zone. That's how long it takes to end 2 careers. The thing about my old TWIC card is that it wasn't expired yet. I'd renewed early. My new card came through a few weeks before the old one's expiration date. That overlap is standard, so you're never without valid credentials. But the old card's credential number still scanned as valid in the system until its expiration hit. I just wasn't carrying it anymore because I had the new one in my wallet. I should have surrendered the old card or cut it up. That's what protocol says. But I tossed it in the junk drawer and forgot about it because, honestly, who thinks their ex-girlfriend is going to photograph a port security credential? Here's what happened at the restricted pier. Kelsey pulled up to the visitor lane at a gate checkpoint with some guy in her passenger seat, told the guard she had a scheduled escort visit, gave my name and credential number as the sponsoring employee. She'd memorized it from the photo she took that night in my kitchen. Handed over her own driver's license for the temp badge. Said I was already inside waiting for her at Pier J. The gate was chaos that morning. A truck had thrown a code 2 lanes over, blocking traffic. Radios blaring dispatch calls. A supervisor sprinting across the checkpoint. Trucks backed up 20 deep, drivers laying on horns. Standard procedure is to call the sponsor, verify they've filed a visitor authorization, confirm they're on site. The guard punched in my credential number, saw it matched an active employee, but he was already 3 problems deep, so he skipped the verification call, printed her a temp visitor badge, logged the entry under my name as sponsor, and waved her through. It happens more than it should. When you're understaffed and the line's growing, sometimes you skip the verification step just to keep things moving. A human mistake, and Kelsey walked right through it. She brought a stranger into a restricted facility. They were told to wait near the gate office for their sponsor, but instead grabbed a couple of high-vis vests off a rack by the entrance and wandered into the yard. 2 people in vests don't pop visually when everyone's moving fast. They spent close to an hour shooting video of container yards that handle cargo from every corner of the planet. Kessler's lawyer turned the footage over during discovery, trying to cut his client a better deal. He'd filmed the yard operations, the crane movements, the container stacks, shot it like a nature documentary. Smooth pans, dramatic angles, voiceover about the hidden backbone of American commerce. The guy treated a secure facility like his personal film set. Even posed Kelsey in front of a gantry crane like it was a photo shoot, because the system eventually catches up. The gate log showed my credential number as the visit sponsor, but I'd never filed a visitor authorization and wasn't even assigned to that pier. When that mismatch hit the daily review, it triggered a flag. When they pulled the footage and saw 2 people in designer clothes walking around a secure area like they were location scouting, It triggered a lot more than a flag. Ms. Patel leaned back in her chair. So she had access to your apartment. She knew where you kept the old card. And she used it 3 weeks after you ended the relationship. That's what I'm telling you. You understand how that looks. Yeah, I understand how it looks. I felt my jaw tighten. But I'm telling you what happened. I didn't help her. I didn't know she took a photo of it. Ms. Patel studied me for a long moment. Her pen tapped against the folder 3 times. Then she closed it. We're going to need you to come back in tomorrow. Don't leave town. I walked out of that building knowing one thing. My career was now hanging on whether a stranger believed me over my ex-girlfriend. Administrative leave sounds like a vacation, until you realize you're the one being investigated. The investigation stretched into the next week. I was put on administrative leave, which meant I sat at home watching the walls, while Ms. Patel and her team pulled apart every detail of my life. Phone record, access logs, any communication I'd had with Kelsey in the past 6 months. My classification review was frozen. I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m. out of habit, get halfway dressed before remembering I had nowhere to go. By day 3, I was reorganizing my toolbox in the garage just to have something to do with my hands. By day 5, I'd rebuilt the garbage disposal, fixed a slow drain in the bathroom, and recaulked every window in the apartment. My neighbor knocked on my door and asked if I was renovating. I told him I was losing my mind. He laughed. I wasn't joking. Paul called me once to check in. Said the union was monitoring the situation, but couldn't do much until the facts were clear. Said I should sit tight and stay clean. Real helpful. When I came back to grab a tool I'd left in my locker, someone had written security risk on the door in black marker. Big letters. Impossible to miss. Ramon saw it when I did. Didn't say a word. Just called maintenance. Had it painted over within an hour. My buddy Javi showed up at my apartment the second night, despite me telling him not to come. He worked yard operations, drove tractors, knew everybody and everything that happened on the docks. So, let me get this straight, he said, sprawled on my couch, eating my chips. Your ex pulled a catch me if you can on terminal security? Just walked right in with a badge that wasn't even hers? Pretty much. That's unhinged. He shook his head. What are you gonna do? Tell the truth. Hope they believe me. You think they're gonna believe you? I didn't answer. I honestly didn't know. From the outside, the story looked bad. Ex-girlfriend uses my credentials right after a public breakup? That could look like revenge on her part, but it could also look like I helped her get in, and now I was covering my tracks. Javi read my expression. Look, man, Patel's thorough, but she's fair. If you didn't do anything wrong, she'll figure that out. Since when do you know so much about how investigators work? Since my cousin got caught stealing copper wire from a job site, and I watched the whole thing play out. He grabbed another handful of chips. Different outcome for him, but same energy. I laughed. First time in days. For real, though, Javi said, suddenly serious. I got your back. Whatever you need. I don't think perjury helps my case. Fine, but the offer stands. I can also lie about smaller stuff if that helps. Like, I can say you're a great guy. That's only a medium lie. He pulled out his phone. Also, I looked up the guy she brought in. His name's Brandon Kessler. Runs a channel called Supply Side Stories. Lists his sponsors right in his bio. Some logistics software company. Why does that matter? Because when that company finds out their brand guy got caught inside a restricted facility using stolen credentials, they're gonna cut ties fast. And Patel might want to know exactly who Kelsey was trying to impress. He showed me Kessler's channel. Guy had about 40,000 subscribers and a voice like a TED Talk speaker who'd watched too many Netflix docs. His content was all about disrupting supply chain transparency and pulling back the curtain on global trade. Every thumbnail had him standing in front of shipping containers looking serious. The comments were full of people calling him a visionary. I wanted to throw my phone into the ocean. By Wednesday, I'd gone through every possible scenario in my head. Best case, they believed me, I kept my job, and Kelsey faced consequences for what she did. Worst case, they didn't believe me. My port access got revoked permanently, and my career was over before I turned 30. They called me back in 3 more times that week, cross-referencing access logs, reviewing phone records, picking apart every detail of the timeline. Ms. Patel called me back in on Thursday for the final sit-down. Same conference room, same cold air conditioning. This time there was a guy in the corner I didn't recognize. Older, gray hair, taking notes on a legal pad. We've completed our preliminary review, Ms. Patel said. We found no evidence you were aware of or complicit in the unauthorized access. I let out a breath. However, she paused. That word hung in the air. Your negligence in securing your credential created the opportunity for this breach. The old card should have been surrendered or destroyed per protocol. So what does that mean for me? Formal reprimand. Mandatory retraining on credential security. 6-month probationary period. One more incident and your credential privileges are revoked. And unofficially? Unofficially, you're lucky you're good at your job, and Paul went to bat for you. I nodded. It wasn't great, but it wasn't over. What about her? Something flickered in Ms. Patel's eyes. She's facing serious charges. Unauthorized facility access. Facilitating unauthorized entry of an unvetted individual. Recording in a restricted zone. The individual she brought, Brandon Kessler, is facing the same charges. The case got referred for prosecution. Good. Ms. Patel raised an eyebrow. That sounded personal. It is personal. She walked into my workplace with my stolen credentials to shoot content for some guy's channel. Javi told me later I should have kept that last part to myself. He was probably right. Some people can't accept when the game is over. They just keep playing until someone calls security. I went back to work the following Monday. My retraining deadline was in 3 weeks. Every shift felt like a test I couldn't afford to fail. Javi found me during lunch break, practically vibrating with excitement. Okay, so I heard something. Ramon said Patel told the gate guys to flag Kelsey's plates and notify her immediately if she shows up anywhere near the facility. That seems thorough. That's not thorough. That's personal. Javi's grin got wider. I respect it. 3 days later, I was running a diagnostic on an RTG crane at the north end of the yard when my radio crackled. King, you copy? It was Javi. He wasn't supposed to be on this channel. What are you doing on maintenance frequency? Dude, Southgate, right now. You're gonna want to see this. I shouldn't have gone. It wasn't my business anymore. The smart move was to stay at my station, finish my work, and let the system handle it. But I'm not always smart, and some things you have to witness. I drove one of the yard vehicles over to the gate area and parked behind a container stack where I could see without being seen. Javi was already there, leaning against a fence post, pretending to check something on his clipboard. Kelsey's car, her white BMW that she was so proud of, was stopped at the gate checkpoint. From what I pieced together later, she'd convinced some new guy she was dating that she had connections at the port and could get them a tour. Whether she actually believed she could talk her way back in or just wanted to prove she could still pull it off, I don't know. Either way, she drove right up to the gate like nothing had ever happened. I could see her through the windshield talking to the guard. Even from 50 yards away, I could tell she was using that voice. That particular tone she'd use when she wanted something from customer service. Sweet, but with an edge. The guard wasn't having it. He was on his radio, calling something in, face completely neutral. Kelsey kept talking, gesturing with her hands. The guy in the passenger seat, the new guy, not Kessler, looked deeply uncomfortable. Then a security SUV with terminal markings pulled up. Ms. Patel stepped out. She was wearing the same calm expression. She walked to Kelsey's window with a folder in her hand, posture relaxed, movements unhurried, like she had all the time in the world. I was too far away to hear what she said, but I saw Kelsey's body language change immediately, confident to defensive in about 2 seconds. She was arguing, explaining, justifying. Ms. Patel didn't argue back, just handed Kelsey the folder through the window and stepped back. Kelsey threw the folder on her dashboard. Even from this distance, I could see her face going red. She was yelling now, loud enough that I could hear the pitch even if I couldn't make out words. The guard moved closer to the vehicle, hand near his radio. A trucker waiting for his turn at the gate was leaning out his window, not even pretending he wasn't staring. Then Kelsey made a mistake. She opened her door and got out of her car, like physical proximity would somehow change the math. 2 things happened fast. The guard stepped forward with his hand up, giving a clear verbal warning, and Ms. Patel said something short and quiet that stopped Kelsey mid-step. I found out later what it was. Something to the effect of, "Take one more step, and you'll be detained." Kelsey got back in her car. She sat there for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel hard. Her passenger was gesturing toward the exit, like he wanted to be anywhere else on the planet. She wasn't listening. A small crowd had gathered by now. 3 guys from morning crew, a couple of truckers, Ramon pretending to check something on his tablet while obviously watching the whole thing. Then she backed up, turned around with a screech of tires, and drove away. One of the truckers slow-clapped. Ramon looked up from his tablet and said, "Morning crew was going to be talking about this for weeks." Javi appeared beside me, grinning. "That was beautiful." "Yeah. You okay?" I started walking toward the yard vehicle. "Let's get back to work." Javi grabbed my arm. "Hold up. You're not about to go do something dumb, right? Like what? Like trying to find better footage, or talking to the gate guys, or anything that puts you back on Patel's radar. Jared, you already won. She just got served in front of half the morning shift. Her new guy looked like he was calculating the fastest way to ghost her. Stay in your lane." He was right. I knew he was right. The fallout came fast after that. The new guy ghosted her within 3 days. Her firm put her on administrative leave, code for clean out your desk quietly. 2 clients dropped her the day after. She got formally terminated the following Monday. I heard that two of her biggest clients, a skincare brand and some wellness retreat company, put out statements distancing themselves before her firm even made the announcement. In PR, reputation is the product. Once that's gone, there's nothing left to sell. 17 months building that career, gone in 17 days. The next few weeks were quiet. I kept my head down, did my job, passed my retraining with flying colors, and tried to pretend everything was normal. Then the letter came. It was from a defense attorney, Kelsey's public defender based on the case number, very politely worded. Said they were exploring all avenues for their client's defense and requested a meeting to discuss my recollection of events. Specifically, the letter asked whether I'd be willing to provide a statement regarding the nature of shared access and understandings between Kelsey and me during our relationship. Shared access and understandings. That's lawyer for, can you say you maybe sort of gave her permission? I read it twice. The language was careful. Nothing in there explicitly asked me to lie, but the implication was obvious. They wanted me to muddy the water, say something vague enough that it could be spun into implied consent. I didn't respond to the letter. A week later, Kelsey showed up at my apartment building. Not at my door, she didn't have the new code, but in the parking lot, sitting on the hood of her BMW when I got home from work. We need to talk, she said as I got out of my truck. No, we don't. Jared, please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I kept walking toward the building entrance. I'm facing charges. Her voice cracked. Serious charges. I stopped walking. I made a mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake, but you can help. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding, that I had your permission, that you want me to lie under oath. I want you to help me. I want you to remember that we spent 18 months together, and that has to mean something. Now I turned around. You called me a doc guy in front of your friends like it was a punchline. You broke into my apartment after I ended things. You stole my credentials, brought a stranger into a restricted facility, and now you want me to lie so you don't have to deal with the consequences. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was insecure and stupid, and I didn't appreciate what you... I don't care, she flinched. I really don't. Not anymore. You made your choices. Every single one of them. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her expression changed. You're going to regret this. I really don't think I am. I walked inside. The whole thing dragged out longer than I expected. Continuances, motions, rescheduled dates. The kind of slow grind that makes you understand why people say the legal system moves at its own speed. It was nearly 4 months from the day of the breach, before I got called in for the hearing that actually mattered. I'd been asked to provide a witness statement for the prosecution. The DA's office wanted my testimony to establish the timeline and confirm I hadn't authorized the access. My role was simple. Tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't volunteer extra information. I was about halfway through my probationary period. Whatever happened in that courthouse would determine whether I had a clean record to go back to. I showed up and sat in the hallway waiting to be called. Courthouse downtown, all marble floors and high ceilings. Security checkpoint at the entrance, metal detectors, the whole thing. Kelsey was there too, sitting on a bench at the other end of the hall with her attorney, going over documents. She looked worse than the last time I'd seen her. Her lawyer got up and walked toward the restrooms. Kelsey stayed on the bench. Then she saw the bailiff step away from the door to talk to someone, saw the hallway momentarily clear. She got up and walked straight toward me, clutching a piece of paper. Her other hand held her phone at her side, screen facing me. I need you to look at something. She was standing too close, blocking my path to the courtroom door. She'd timed it. Back up, Kelsey. Just read it. It's not saying you gave me permission. It's just saying you don't object to a reduced charge. That's it. I noticed the phone angle. She wanted me on camera, wanted me to say something she could use. Put the phone away. Her face flickered. Caught. I'm not recording. Put it away or I'm getting the bailiff. She lowered the phone, but she didn't move. I know you're not heartless, she said, dropping her voice. Please just back up, I said. Now. She hesitated just long enough to confirm what she was doing. It's not permission, she said fast. It's just you not objecting to a reduced charge. I'm not signing anything, I said. And I'm not giving you a quote you can clip. Her face tightened. The mask slipped. The bailiff clocked her standing in my space and started walking over. Ma'am, he said, voice flat. Return to your seat. Now. She stared at me like she was trying to find a crack. Then she turned and walked back before she got herself in even deeper. Her lawyer was coming back down the hallway, saw the scene, and his face fell. We need to go sit down, Kelsey, he said quietly. She walked back to her bench without another word. I got called in about 20 minutes later. Kelsey sat at the defense table staring straight ahead. She didn't look at me once while I was on the stand. Told the truth. Just the facts. Nothing extra. Answered the questions, confirmed the timeline, explained the credential situation, stepped down. The whole thing took maybe half an hour. Kelsey ended up pleading to lesser charges, 2 years probation, community service, permanent trespass ban from Port of Long Beach terminals and associated properties, plus a probation condition to stay away from any port facility, restitution payments that would follow her for years, and a conviction on her record that would show up on every background check for the foreseeable future. Brandon Kessler took a similar deal. His sponsors dropped him the day the charges were filed. His channel got nuked, not by the platform. He deleted it himself after the comments section turned into a roast. Somebody had screenshotted the charges and posted them under every video. 40,000 subscribers, gone overnight. Turns out, pulling back the curtain on global trade hits different when you did it with stolen credentials. Last I heard, he was working at his uncle's car wash in Riverside. Javi met me outside the courthouse with tacos from a truck he swore was the best in Long Beach. We sat in his truck in the parking lot, eating and not talking about anything important. "You good?" he asked eventually. "Yeah, that was a lot." "It was, but it's done now." He handed me another taco. We ate in silence for a while. Then we drove back toward Long Beach. The port lights were coming on in the distance, cranes silhouetted against the orange sky. Somewhere out there, containers were moving, ships were loading, and the whole machine kept running. My job was to keep it running. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.